Okay, so this is what we are going to be creating today. It's a cute little apple, and later when we come to class, we're going to actually add a worm to it. So that's why I chose to do the apple, since we learned so much about worms today. So what I'm going to do to start my piece is I am going to, in a minute, you're going to get boxes that have a bunch of pieces of paper in it. So when you get your box, it's going to have, you're going to need a black piece of paper, you're going to need a brown rectangle, a manila rectangle, a red piece of paper, a green piece of paper, and kind of a brown stick, okay? So the first thing, you're eventually going to need a crayon, but you don't need it right now. So what you're going to do first is you're going to glue your brown sheet of paper onto the bottom of your black paper. Now you're going to have stick glue. So when you're using stick glue, what I like to do is move it off of my black piece of paper, and then I apply the glue around the edges first. And then I kind of color it in or fill it in so that I make sure that it sticks to my paper. And this is good glue, so it will stick. So then I want to line it up with the bottom of my paper. If I can see black, then I need to move it. And I'm going to push it down and make sure it's nice and on there, okay? So the next step we're going to do is we're going to take our manila piece of paper and we're going to tear along the long parts of the manila piece of paper, not the short parts at the top, only the sides. So I'm going to pinch my paper. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on the right-hand side. If you're left-handed, you may want to start on the left-hand side and then flip it and tear the other side. But that's just how I do it. So I'm going to start pinching and tearing. You can either tear pieces off or you can tear a strip. It's completely up to you. You don't want to tear too much off, okay? If you accidentally tear into it, just be careful. You want to leave it one piece, okay? That's why I'm telling you to pinch and tear, because if you tear with one hand and rip it down, it's going to tear your paper, okay, in half. So then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm pinching and tearing and I'm just moving it down. See how I can make one strip come off, okay? If you can't do that, like I said, you can pinch little pieces and tear them off a little bit at a time. That's okay. I'm going to move the pieces that I ripped off to the side. And I'm going to glue this to the middle of my brown sheet of paper, okay? So see how the bottom is right in the middle of the brown. I'm going to take it off of my paper because I don't want to get glue on my paper. And I'm going to, just like I said, I'm going to go around the outside and then I'm going to fill in with my glue. And I'm going to flip it over and glue it to the middle of my brown sheet of paper. Okay, now the next step is to add the red part of the apple. So what I'm going to do is take my oval, and what I want to do is tear my oval in half. So I'm going to take my fingers again, and I'm going to rip a little bit at a time. If you go like this and rip, it's not gonna cut them in half. Now, if one side's a little bit bigger than the other, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. But you want to rip it somewhere in the middle of the oval, okay? Now, when you glue it on, the rounded part on the bottom is going to be pointed down, and the rounded part on the top is going to be pointed up, okay? So, then you're going to take the pieces off, put some glue on them, and glue those pieces down. Okay, the next step is to add the stem. So you have this brown stick piece of paper. What I do is I just tear it in half, put the other half back in my box because somebody else may be able to use it, and I'm going to glue it right in the middle of the top of my apple. If you want to glue it on the top, you can. If you want to glue it kind of crooked, you can. It's up to you. But it has to be touching the top of the apple. So I am going to glue it in the middle, and I'm going to kind of turn it a little bit because sometimes stems are a little bit sideways. And then the last thing I'm going to do is take my green sheet of paper, and I'm going to tear my green sheet of paper kind of in the shape of a football or a leaf shape, because that's what I'm trying to do, is make a leaf. So this is more of a square. You may have more of a rectangle. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to tear off some triangle shapes They don't have to be perfect triangles, but I'm just kind of ripping a triangle shape off the edge. That just kind of helps me to give me kind of more of a football shape. And then I'm going to tear off little pieces so that I end up having a shape that kind of resembles a leaf. Now, look at how big that is. If you don't like, if it's too big, then just pick it up and tear a little bit off. I always like to put it down on my paper and see what I think it looks like, okay? Now, okay, I think that looks good. I'm going to make sure my leaf is touching my stem. So I'm going to pick it up, put some glue on it, and then I'm going to stick it somewhere to my stem. That's my phone, so just ignore that. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my black crayon and I'm going to add 5 or 6 dots to the middle of my apple. Okay? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can add 6 if you'd like to. And then on the bottom corner, on either side, I'm going to write my name neatly because this is going to be in our play that's coming up at the end of the month. So I want to make sure my name is nice and neat in one of the corners, and I need to add my code. So I'm going to add my name, and then I'm going to add my code, which your code is YK. It may be BK or RK, but you add a YK, and then you get to carry your art to the dry rack. Once you are finished, you may free draw if you have time, and have a good day.